All right, folks. We all know that one of the most common mishaps in hunting is damage to your rifle scope. Last year, I found the solution to that problem with the StHeathy Hunter rifle cover. It wraps around your scope and actions securely to protect it from getting knocked off of zero or even severely damaged. StHeathy Hunter also has a glassing pad and a wide variety of supplements for the outdoorsman, such as protein powder, CBD products, turmeric, and gut health supplements. They also make a lightweight trauma kit weighing in at just 14 ounces that includes everything you need and nothing you don't for all of your backcountry medical emergencies. To shop all of their equipment and supplements, go to StHeathyHunter.com and enter the discount code at checkout, The Northern Hunter, to save on your order today. All StHeathy Hunter equipment is proudly made in the USA.
You're listening to the Northern Hunter Podcast, home of all things hunting, fishing, and outdoors in Alaska. All right, everybody, welcome back to the show. My name is James Payne.
I'm Dalton Gray.
I'm Mariah Humphreys.
And on this week's bonus episode, we are joined by the one and only Ryan Lampers. How you doing, man?
Good, guys. Appreciate you having me on here today.
Yeah, appreciate you making time for us and jumping on. So you and Dalton went on a deer hunt this last year, and that film is now out and live for the public to view. I believe episode 1 dropped last Sunday. We got episode 2 coming out this coming Sunday. So, let me correct you on that. Hopefully, it's not 100%. Yeah, allegedly.
There may be a little delay in that, and it may be the following Sunday.
All right, cool. Hey, you know what? Everybody loves a little bit of suspense, right? So,
did they make it out alive?
Tune in next week to find out.
See if the cameraman survived.
But yeah, I appreciate you coming on to the show, and I'm excited to hear some, behind the scenes, some equipment use, tactics, and all that jazz, all that good stuff. Before we get too far, too carried away, though, I just wanted to remind anybody listening that if you are in the Fairbanks area or able to be in the Fairbanks area, on April 20th, roundabouts noontime, the Northern Hunter is putting on its first in-person training event. So we're going to be doing the bear baiting workshop, and it's going to be just an afternoon event. We've got lunch provided. It's going to be catered barbecue. So barbecue and bear baiting doesn't get much better than that. We got guest speakers. We got a whole afternoon of just great information that'll take you from, if you're somebody who's never baited bears before in your life and you're just interested in it, if you've tried a couple times and maybe you just haven't gotten the numbers you want, or maybe you've done a whole bunch of it and you just want to come hang out with guys that bear bait. This is going to be a great event. It's going to be pretty much all afternoon. And, this is one thing where if you are new up here, especially for our military guys, if you're up here and you might not know many people, this will be a great opportunity to kind of get in the community and meet other people that are interested in what you're doing. We got a lot of educational content for you guys. So if you want to attend, we request that you would go to thenorthernhunter.com and hit the reserve your seat button with your party number. That's simply so we know how much food to make. You are more than welcome to show up, but you just might be sitting there hungry. So, but when we'll have door prizes and giveaways and things like that for you guys as well, to help get you guys some equipment to help. We got Beta 907 products. Your company, Ryan, has been one of our great sponsors. You were the OG sponsor, actually, the very first to believe in what we were doing. So I just wanted to say appreciate everything you have done for us and helping us out. And we'll have some of your great products there. So just make sure you go RSVP for that. And yeah, if you can be here Saturday, April 20th, noon.
Where at?
At the J.P. Jones Community Center.
Yeah, you want to leave them hanging. We don't want all of them to show up.
They got to go to the website
office
to find out where.
Yeah. I was going to say, we don't want to have them all show up at our office. We wouldn't have room for them.
Exactly.
So Ryan, last year, deer hunt. It's August. But before that, we were talking about doing a hunt Probably since last winter or so. I kind of forgot when we started talking about this, but probably shortly after New Year's or sometime like that. But we get a lot of questions about people that are asking about planning a hunt in Alaska and choosing a species to hunt. The particular theme of this hunt was to choose something that that your daughter Pailey would enjoy coming along on and doing, that wouldn't be so physically challenging that it would turn her away from hunting in Alaska forever, but also enough of a challenge that, and for folks that have seen any videos that Pailey has been in on your channel, she's a tough girl. She's like her dad, and she can hit the mountains probably a lot better than most any other people her age. So with that kind of in mind, talk about just our pre-hunt plan and how we landed on going to this part of the state for this species and what kind of logistics go into a hunt like that from your perspective.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Dalton. Like you mentioned, we talked about this hunt. I really wanted to do something special with Pailey. We're in that kind of prime stage of her life. She's 15 now. And I want to get her out. I want to get her on as many trips as possible. And although she's got some experience, she's done well on the mule deer with me here in the great state of Montana, and she can definitely keep up with pert near anybody, if not crush the guys I hunt with, like Brian Call. She just downright crushes that boy. So fun to watch. She is very tough. But on the same token, I'm always very careful with where I take her, as far as just, I want it to be somewhat pleasant. Now, there was obviously, as Alaska, right? There's always that threat of, hey, you get parked in the tent for so many days, and we could get bad weather. And there's the threat of that. But, we kind of settled on, doing a blacktail hunt in Alaska. Something top of the world, something up in the alpine, something open. We didn't tailor it too much to being gentle. Obviously, if we would have done that, we would have done a caribou hunt. Yeah. But we decided on this one spot that, you were looking around, I was looking around, and I leaned on you for some good intel and information. And we decided on this area that had all the looks of, when I think of like an August mule deer hunt down here in the States, it's kind of similar. You're hunting, bucks that are still in velvet. They're bachelored up. They're top of the world. You're finding them at 10,000, 11,000, 12,000 and up. I love that type of hunting. It's almost, it can be easy. I will say that. Not the most challenging to find animals this time of year. They're out in the open. They're shining like diamonds. They're bright red coats. It's not like they're a November dark coated mule deer down in the rocks where they just blend in and disappear. Bright green grass, red coats. So it's nice. So it's one of those hunts where I felt like my daughter's going to be able to get behind the glass and see stuff that we don't see. And pick up animals on our own, and so we settled on that, and you and I had a lot of conversations in determining where we wanted to go, and like I said, I leaned on you for this one. You were doing a lot of scouting. I was scouting a bunch of other hunts at the time too, and I think we picked a heck of a spot, as folks saw in that film. I don't know how you could get any better of a location. We had the steeps, we had the rocks, we had just, it was definitely cliffed out in places, but we didn't have to risk life and limb to go get these deer. There was a lot of deer in this particular spot. So it was pretty cool. We were seeing bucks and in these big slides, these big rock fields, and we were all kind of just like in awe of where they were parking themselves. And trying to determine if we could even get to these bucks sometimes. But in the end, we didn't even have to go into the shale stuff. We were finding these bucks just kind of out in the grass, out in the open stuff. We never had to get too death defying to put a tag on a buck for this one.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, I'd kind of expected, well, on a couple of different fronts, I expected some things that didn't quite go the way that I had thought they would, which that's on me. You know, expectations need to be set probably relatively low for anybody doing a hunt like this for the first time. I kind of underestimated the severity of some of the steepness, like right off of where we landed on the lake. It looked like that saddle that we were going to climb was going to be a relatively,
Cakewalk,
kind of a cakewalk, right? I know you and I, even pre-flying out, because we got delayed in town a day because of bad weather, you and I were looking at maps, and, using the 3D and looking at it and thinking, man, this is going to be pretty easy. I mean, we're going to camp right here, which we did. And the camp spot, I will say, was just ideal. It really couldn't have been any better. We were sheltered by most of what would have been the main channels of wind coming off the other end up from the ocean. And we had plenty of old, what seemed to be, I don't know how old that wood was that we were cutting for firewood, but it had been there a while because there was nothing really for trees around that lake.
I got asked that question, like, where the heck did that firewood come from that you guys are gathering? Because they never saw tree film.
Yeah.
And it's true. There was a few trees kind of on the far side of the lake in areas, but that is just years and years of collection and, pieces, setting adrift out into the pond and getting washed up on one side.
Yeah.
I was actually surprised how much we found.
Yeah. Well, that there was no shortage of firewood. And even when the pilot came back in, he landed and we had made, as you can see in the first film here that aired this last week on Sunday, you could see on the first full day that we had in there, actually, I think it was the morning after Pailey shot her deer. We had spent a few hours middle of the next day just walking around, cutting firewood, putting it in the packs or carrying it back by the armloads because it was sunny and because we were expecting at some point, like, it's going to rain. It has to rain. And when that happens, we wanted some way to dry out all of our gear. And there was so much wood. I mean, there was no way to collect all of it. But that was something that, as I was over there, and I don't know if you mentioned it or not already, or if it's in the film later, but that's often a good sign to see if there's any heavy prevailing winds in an area, is over time, any wood that makes it into that lake, if there's only driftwood on one end of the lake, then it's a pretty good indication that that's where the wind normally blows in from.
Right.
And we were well outside of that. And so that made me a little bit more confident that where we were was probably going to be a little bit more sheltered from the wind rather than being on the other side. But yeah, so the weather, obviously, folks can see in this first episode, and really for the majority of the hunt, right up until the day that you and Pailey and I got flown out, it was just stellar. There was no rain. There was no snow. It wasn't cold. I slept with my sleeping bag unzipped every night. I was more than warm. I think I put on my puffy vest, and that was about the most puffies I put on the entire trip. And that was just at night after it was dark. And
How warm was it out there during the day?
68 degrees.
68 degrees.
On that note, my thermometer came in clutch, which Ryan loved to give me a hard time for in the film. But it was 68 degrees during the day.
I saw
that, James. Thank you.
First time I saw that thermometer, it just reminds me of like something you picked up at an old garage sale when I was a kid. Because I remember having one of those like in my early teens, like when you're just doing like explorers and stuff, and you had those like really old thermometers, and there it was sitting on your jacket. Noisy as all get out.
I thought it looked like one of them things out of a cereal box. When you're a kid, you pour the Captain Crunch out.
Yeah.
And you
get a little compass or something like that. Yeah. No, I'll have you know, I bought that at a local outdoor store where I also purchased some of my hunting dry bags and whatnot. So it was from a store that I get other gear from. And I have two of those. I have one on my Barney's pack and one on my initial ascent pack. That way I always know what the temperature is.
You should get one of those was it the dog tag silencers?
Yeah,
The little rubber
yeah.
things they put around those. See if that'll fit around that.
I could just cover it with electrical tape.
There you go.
On the sides.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Well,
it was extremely warm. Like, put it that way. When it was 68 degrees, I mean, that is not what we expected at all.
No.
I didn't figure we'd be swimming in that kind of heat.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In that time of year, just never thought it was going to happen. And
Yeah.
like Dalton was mentioning, we gathered up all that wood. There's no way in the world I thought we weren't going to have to deal with at least one storm while we were there.
Yeah.
One big squall or whatever that would, trap us in the tents for a little bit. That was just, you just know it's coming. It just never happened. So we got super, super lucky on that.
Yeah.
Bright sunny days, able to recharge everything with the solar. It was great.
I don't think I had to use my dark energy batteries one time.
Really?
Yeah. It was
That's
so
amazing.
bright out every day. I just would wake up in the morning, throw the solar panel outside the teepee, plug in the phone, and it was topped off by the time I was eating the rest of my biscuits and gravy.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it was
I think
quite
the only
nice.
time a stove actually got fired up, I think, Dalton, you were testing one out at that.
Yes.
And you fired it up, probably cooked yourself right out of your,
Oh, yeah.
you and Tabitha.
It was so hot in there.
And after that, it wasn't even a consideration about firing up a stove.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the first hunt that I'd ever brought that little Light Outdoors titanium stove with that Peaks tent. And that was the first hunt that I'd ever used a Peaks tent on. And so I had burned with it in the front yard, but I thought, you know what? I'll just set it up, throw it together. We got back to camp one night. I think it was the night that we shot those 3 bucks that day that was on the first episode of the film. And I fired it up, and within 2 minutes, I had both tent doors wide open. Sleeping bag was balled up on the ground offside the cot, and it was like a sauna in there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, after that, but earlier on, I was saying we had so much firewood piled up underneath the teepee and then off to the side underneath a little tarp just to have on hand that when the pilot came back into land to pick us all up, he asked me, and I don't know if you heard him say this, Ryan, but he said, "Is that all the deer bones up there by where your tents were?" He thought it was us deboning all the meat, and that was all the bones, and which alludes to the fact that we put the smack down on the blacktail bucks on that trip. But no, it was just unburned firewood.
Nice. It's always good when you're able to have a little bit left over at the end of the trip.
Oh, yeah.
Means things were comfy.
The guy that drops into that pond is going to be awfully lucky. He's going to have to do no searching for.
Yeah. He's going to have
weeks worth of wood.
2 weeks worth of dry firewood. Yeah. So kind of on the front of the weather there, talk about, obviously we expected to have a lot worse weather. We didn't get that. Every time you come to Alaska to hunt and every time any of us go out, we always plan to lose at least 2 to 3 days of the weather. That's just how it is. Sometimes it's 80-mile-an-hour winds and blowing rain and low clouds and fog, and you can't even see 200 yards sometimes. But other times you end up with a hunt like this where you can pretty well hunt every day you're there. But with that in mind, we all used, as folks can see, the Peaks Solitude 4-man teepee, which, I mean, it's kind of an interesting name, calling it a Solitude, but it's a 4-man. So, maybe, I mean, solitude in the backcountry, but it's a 4-man. But
more guys can find solitude on the top of a mountain just as well as one guy.
There you go.
Yeah,
there you go.
I like it. But you guys had something that hadn't been released yet that we weren't able to talk about prior to now. But talk about the sleeping bag from Peaks that is now on the market that you guys are running on that hunt.
Oh yeah. We've been playing with that sleeping bag for a couple years now. Just different protos. I think there were 7 different iterations of it. But yeah, we kind of put all our wants into this bag, and Bryce Bishop over there at Peaks, he wanted everybody's opinion on what they thought would make the best bag on the market, and we just kind of threw everything under the sun at him, and lo and behold, that's what we ended up with. So yeah, it's a stud bag. Love it. It's 15 degrees. I think there's probably plans to build one that'll drop down to a 0. But at this point, for the hunting that I do, typically 15-degree bag is like the perfect bag, because you always have puffy gear. You always have a puffy jacket of sorts, puffy pants. So if you want it to be a 0, you can easily get there with just the gear you have in your pack for the most part.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's got it's got a lot of cool features. It's got you know, a 3-way zipper, for example, and it's a center zip. A 3-way zipper is kind of unique. It actually brings a lot of benefit with it. You know, you can, if you're a hot sleeper and you know, like your middle gets a little hot, you know, you just kind of open up that zipper in a way that kind of airs it out, or vice versa. You know, it's really versatile in that respect. And then also it's got armholes. You know, that's kind of what everybody sees when they see that bag, is the armhole. So you can keep it zipped up. You can wake up, make a cup of coffee, stoke the fire, do whatever you got to do. Basically stay zipped up in the bag.
I love that.
Not have to crack that zipper at all. And there was a lot of changes in design, you know, tweaks on the armholes to get it right to where we weren't losing heat out of that flap. And there was some pretty cool technology involved in trying to make that exit where your arms come out of the bag perfect, so that this heat wasn't escaping while you slept.
Yeah.
Aside from that, you've got the foot box, which I think is one of those pieces that you hear a lot of complaints. You know, their feet get cold or whatever. A lot of foot boxes aren't that large. So you got a guy that's got a size 12, 13 foot, top to bottom. You know, he's kind of pressing into the top, and he's creating a cold spot because it's so tight. You know, it's a down bag, and and so we extended that out. We made it a little bit taller, a little bit wider, and then added loft down there. And on top of that, we put a waterproof exterior to the foot box. So with those 3 changes, I felt like we crushed it as far as never, probably, hopefully, ever getting, you know, cold feet again. So that was a big bit. And then, yeah, I think the hood that comes with it is perfect if you want it, if you like it. If you don't, there's a small zipper up there. You can tuck that away and turn this bag into a quilt with ease without having that actual headgear on. So you can tuck it away, hide it, and just use it as a quilt that you'd toss onto yourself, you know, on the hot days.
Oh, I like that.
Like what we went up there. So yeah, we used it a lot in the past couple seasons, and it finally got launched, and people are hearing a lot of good response. You know, I think they're pretty happy with it.
Will it go up to 6.5 feet for an individual?
Yeah. Yeah. So we had Brady in one.
Okay. Yeah.
Because Brady's a tall dude, he's 6.5 feet.
Nice.
So there's 3 different sizes. You know, there's the regular, there's the tall, there's a wide. So there's 3 different kind of shapes there for guys.
Okay.
Wow.
I like that, because there's nothing more heartbreaking as a taller guy than to read all these great details about a piece of equipment just to realize you can't use it.
Yeah, I mean, we built this to be able to fit Brady Miller if he was going to crawl into it. We made sure a guy like Brady could get in there, and Brady's a tall dude, so
yeah,
skinny dude, but he's a tall dude, so we need to something.
Well, let's jump to a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back. All right, folks. We all know that one of the most common mishaps in hunting is damage to your rifle scope. Last year, I found the solution to that problem with the StHeathy Hunter rifle cover. It wraps around your scope and actions securely to protect it from getting knocked off of zero or even severely damaged. StHeathy Hunter also has a glassing pad and a wide variety of supplements for the outdoorsman, such as protein powder, CBD products, turmeric, and gut health supplements. They also make a lightweight trauma kit weighing in at just 14 ounces that includes everything you need and nothing you don't for all of your backcountry medical emergencies. To shop all of their equipment and supplements, go to StHeathyHunter.com and enter the discount code at checkout, The Northern Hunter, to save on your order today. All StHeathy Hunter equipment is proudly made in the USA. And we're back. Let's do a quick breakdown of the hunt here. Just do a quick breakdown of day by day, who killed and on what days, and how fast this went. Because although it can seem a little bit compressed in the film, this one actually wasn't that compressed. It all went pretty fast. We made hay while the sun was shining. We were seeing a lot of deer, and as we got up above camp there over the saddle and into that kind of the back country there where we were hunting, We just kept on seeing decent bucks. And this is not a deer hunt. And I think I've mentioned this on the show before, but there are parts of Alaska where I would hold out for probably a 4x4 or bigger when it comes to blacktails, because you know you have that kind of potential in the antler growth. This part of the state, that's not as prevalent. And if you get anything with 4 on one side or 3 on the other, and and if they have eye guards, then that's a nice deer. You're generally not going to get as much of that big antler growth in this part of the state. So, with that in mind, my wife and I each shot deer that were didn't have as many points as the ones that Pailey and Ryan and Chiam, the camera guy, ended up shooting. But I had told my wife going into this, I said, we get to do this every year. We're just going to shoot the first couple of nice mature bucks that we can, and we'll come home with enough meat. Each of us shooting 1 deer, we'll come home with 2. And any of the bigger caliber class of bucks, we're going to defer and let them shoot them.
There you go.
Which is exactly what ended up happening. So on that note, in the first episode, folks obviously saw Ryan fishing for deer. And if you haven't watched the film already, go ahead and just pause the podcast, and on your lunch break or when you get home from work, just go watch that episode. It's on the StHeathy Hunter YouTube channel, and go watch that deer get shot and watch Ryan recover it out of an icy cold lake in the dark with a rod and reel. And was it a Castmaster that you landed with?
Yep, fishing for deers in the dark with a Castmaster.
You know, it's always something funny when somebody asks you this question. But did you catch any deer?
Yeah.
And actually, we have. Yes, we did. Actually.
And on top of all that, after I don't know how many casts it was. I don't remember how many times you had winged that thing out there and reeled it back really fast because you knew you hadn't hooked it. But at long last, after we'd been joking about it, you hooked it in the mouth and then brought it to shore. So
right in the lip.
It was an ethical. It was an ethical catch at that. You weren't just snagging it. So Ryan Lamper's the master deer fisher.
Yeah, it was tough too because Dalton, you remember when that deer came off that embankment and hit the pond and it went out into the middle.
Yeah.
You're looking at the right side of this pond and all it is icebergs, half of it's not even melted yet. Super cold. And where does that deer get to in the pond? He gets right smack dab in the middle. Like right in the middle, the furthest from shoreline on all sides.
Yeah.
And that's he finally
died.
And so yeah, we scratched our head for a few minutes, and obviously somebody made the comment, I think it was Chiam, like, should have brought that raft. And, this is something we debated bringing on this trip. Like, do you think we should bring it? Should we save the weight? Should we not? In the end, decided against bringing the raft. And, boy, that was a mistake because this could have cost us. Now, you'll also remember in our planning, Dalton.
Yes.
No fish in this pond, right? No fish.
Correct.
So don't even bring the rod.
That's what.
But something deep down told me, just in case there are, and everybody's wrong, you want to have one. Like in case we happen to look down and we see a trout swimming in this pond, we're going to kick ourselves if we don't have a rod in camp. Or say if we hike to another pond that happens to have fish.
Right.
So fortunately, we did bring, a rod. Brought some tackle, and I didn't have to get cold because I would have been the one out there swimming in Muscovies trying to grab that deer that night.
I'll tell you right now, you would have been.
We ended up getting the stove going.
Yeah, I'll tell you right now, I would not have been the one going out there swimming after that deer. I'm not. I promise you, of anybody in that group, I am the worst swimmer. I can tell you that for a fact.
Yeah, sure.
You would have been going from that deer hunt to a funeral for me if I would have been the guy put out in that water. I wouldn't have made it. There's no way.
I definitely would have tried to get Pailey to do it, but I know she wouldn't. Although she does handle cold really well, and she's a fantastic swimmer.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow I got real lucky. I don't handle heat well at all. Like I melt in the heat. I can't do hot tubs or saunas or anything. but I thrive in cold stuff. So the cold water stuff doesn't bother me at all. Cold showers for me.
Yeah.
Not a chance in heck I could ever get in a shower after my wife has been in there because it's
Just melt your skin right off.
Molten lava.
But yeah, so we lucked out. I didn't have to jump in and go fetch that thing, but
I don't know
cool.
that I'll ever see another thing like that ever, and that's I you know what, I think I'm fine with that.
Well, it's funny because growing up, I bird hunted a ton with my dad, and we'd go chase pheasant, we'd go chase upland stuff more than waterfowl. A lot of pheasant we'd hunt in the Tules, and we'd go hunt the potholes of Washington State, and we'd hunt, all the quail and pheasant out there, and then chucker in the higher country stuff. But man, I can't tell you how many times we had to retrieve a pheasant because we ran a lot of dogs that just weren't that into water, or they didn't see it go down. We weren't running lads, running Brittany's and German short hairs and all that. And some of our dogs over the years were great, and some weren't. So we'd always carry a rod so that we could, because we were jumping pheasants in the Tules all the time, and you shoot one out there and you just cast out and reel them back in. So we used to do that all the time.
That's why your aim is so good then. You could see that black shiny nose out in the water of that buck, and all right, that's my target. That's my target.
The first time we started casting, that was the difficulty, is like I can't even hardly see it.
Yeah.
We'd shine a light out, but it was so far out there, it was like at the very end of what I could actually physically get it out to.
Yeah.
But fortunately, the cast master did its job, and that thing flies a mile. That thankfully it does.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just weird that the one spot I finally connect, and it literally is like inside out, of the mouth.
That's amazing.
It wasn't even like outside in. It literally looked like a good hook set. Didn't even look flossed like it was.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Pretty cool.
That was awesome.
Well, and to the point of like what happened with that deer, I mean, these animals are just tough as they come. I mean, and Mo, you had one do a very similar thing on that hunt. When all three of us went down. I mean, and you hit that thing dead to rights. I mean, it was a dead deer running
twice,
and it still swam out in the middle of the water. So, I mean, that's not an unheard of thing to happen. I mean, even with a good hit.
At least on that thing with Mariah's buck, we were able to just, all right, let's get back in the boat and motor out there. And
right.
Totally different.
Yeah, and if you watch the film, you'll see where the shot was. And, we were having a hard time, when she first took the shot, like seeing exactly where it hit. I think you and I both thought it was a little low, Dalton.
Yeah.
And in the end, you hear me, saying this is the perfect shot. And it was a little low. Let's face the facts. It was a little bit low. If it was 2 inches higher, it would have been even better.
Yeah.
Just because of the angle. She put it perfect mid-body, and that's where she hit. But that deer was down just a little bit, so it exited at the bottom quarter of the far side, and just a couple inches higher, and it would have been a little bit better. But in the end, she still made a heck of a shot and put it right where, it went right where she put it.
Yeah.
But we had talks later, on a shot like that, maybe think a little bit higher. And we always think about where that thing's going to exit.
Right.
Just a scotch level. Could have been a little bit higher.
Yeah. Well,
in the end, that was going nowhere. It deflated those lungs.
Yeah.
In a hurry.
Yeah. It was definitely a lethal shot, but yes, but because of the angle. And honestly, I had forgotten about that aspect of it. I was watching the film here a couple of days ago, just watching it over again. And I had forgotten that it was a little bit lower than us. We were up on that little hill. We were actually looking at two different deer when you had snuck off behind us and spotted this other one across the lake. Really, but probably directly behind us at this point. And that ended up being a better buck. So that's the one that we all, shifted over to. But it made it tough. And for folks that are wondering, well, why didn't you just shoot it again before it ran in the lake? Well, because of our angle, it ran down to the bottom and then made it to the water before you two had time to reposition forward to shoot over the edge now, because it had gone down enough. I mean, it just bolted straight down for that water. And so had we been farther forward, it might have busted us perhaps before that and not allowed for a shot at all. So you run that risk of, do you get closer for an all-encompassing angle at all the terrain, or do you shoot now and hope that it goes down right away? And that's just one of those things that it happens to everybody. You know, all of us have taken shots at angles, shot the animal, and then it runs, and well, you can't even see it for a follow-up shot. So you're repositioning and wondering, where did I hit it? Did I hit it? Which way did it go? Because now I lost it, and that was the scramble going on there, you know, off camera. So, yeah, but just talk a little bit, Ryan. I know you've mentioned that you've hunted with Pailey a few times now on some different deer hunts through the years now as she's getting a little bit older, and I can see from the first films that you guys did together with her, kind of her evolution and her poise. And now she's always been a lot like you. You know, pretty calm, not easily excited. She follows your lead very, very well. But talk about a couple of things maybe for our listeners who have kids that are getting into hunting or kids that will be getting into hunting, and some of that coaching aspect and how you have maybe helped her to accelerate that learning process better than some.
Yeah. You know, I am super lucky to have a girl like Pailey come hunting with me on these trips. You know, I think when you become a father and you're a hunter, you always, you know, you think ahead and you're like, man, are they going to like it? Is he or she going to like it? Are they going to want to do it? Is this going to be my hunting buddy at some point? And you hope that's the case. But maybe it won't be. You know, you just never know. Never know what you're going to get. Even though obviously my girls are both raised in a hunting family, they see what I do and they hear the stories and all that. I still don't know if Tana's going to do it. I have no idea. Yeah. But boy, Pailey sure took to it. Like she really, really has taken to it. And you know, it's kind of this balance that you do out there. You want your kids to do hard things. I really want my girls to do hard things. I don't want them to meet, you know, a guy out there that's tougher than they are. I want them to be able to do all things and then some. And so, you know, I push her. I definitely push her. And by pushing her, I mean she goes with me on these treks, and we do the night hikes, and we do the cold weather, and we do long distance. And, you know, there's a fine line that I don't want to push and go beyond to make it miserable. But on the same time, and the same token, she kind of likes that challenge of it. You know, if you'll notice in even just our hunt that we did with you, Dalton, she's looking for more stuff on her back. Like she asked to put more meat on her back all the time.
Yep, she did.
She wanted to put your guys's, and I think she may have put half of your deer on her back. Yeah. Or Tabitha's. Yeah. Something. She's just like, she can carry weight. She's got really strong legs. And, you know, I remember even 2 years ago when we took that big 3-point, we had that film come out this year. You know, she wanted to carry the entire thing out. Like she didn't even want me to do much at all with that deer. And she did. She basically carried the entire thing over to the staging point where we ended up bringing llamas in and carrying the rest out. But I'm always just so blown away. She kind of sees it as a challenge, and like I don't know if she's just trying to prove herself to me or what, but I know how tough she is, and I know how strong she is. So I don't have to do a whole lot of encouraging when it comes to that. Yeah. But you know, I think kids that like the challenge of it all, you know, I think it's important. You know, I hunt with guys. She's had the opportunity to hunt with me and other friends at the same time, whether it's, you know, my wife or Brian or Brad or Chiam, and these guys, some of them hike fast, some of them don't. I love to throw Brian under the bus because he don't. Chiam's gotten pretty good. Brad is a fast hiker. Mark, not so much. But Eli, Mark's son, is a absolute stomper. That kid can fly. And so they'll challenge each other. You know, they're both really good, fast hikers. And Pailey loves to just compete with those guys and make sure she beats them to the top. She doesn't want to be at the back of the pack. Yeah. And so, you know, even at these summits that I do in the summer, you know, there's the front group that goes out with all the attendees, They think they're going to keep up with Brian Barney, and good luck to them. They try and they never really do. But she's in that group. She tries to stay in that group, and I'd love to see it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think my job is, as her father, is to keep pushing her, making her do these tough things. I've had her on quite a few hunts at this point, even though it just seems like yesterday we got her out on her first one with Hillary and Brian.
Yeah.
And that was a ton of fun. But now, gosh, she's taken, a handful of mule deer, and now she was able to take some blacktail, and this year we're hoping to get her on an elk. So, yeah, I don't know. I think you got to read your kid a little bit though, because not all kids are wanting to crush mountains, and
Yeah.
I think it's your job to just try to make it as fun as you can for them. My big worry was having the type of conditions that just turned her off to it, or going into places where we just didn't see enough animals, that it got boring for her.
That's a hard one.
That's a tough one. Like I take her to certain places here in my state where I know we're going to see animals. I'm not going to go 12 days without seeing a deer and then try to find one mature deer. I don't take her to those places. And that's why this hunt that we all did together was so perfect, because she got good company in you and Tabitha, and she always loves hanging around Chiam, because Chiam is a constant joker.
Yes.
You are as well. I'll give you that. And she just absolutely loved everything about it. The weather helped a lot, and just the fact that we were seeing a lot of animals. It was just a perfect trip for a kid.
Yeah. Yeah. And she can probably throw a football better than I can. I'll give her that one too.
I don't know if anybody picked that up on that, but in the film you do see a football laying there. Her and I love to throw.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun, and I cannot say that I've ever had a football at hunt camp, but I did take it on this one because she was there. So
yeah.
No, we had a good couple of hours of just chucking the ball around. It was great.
Yeah. Well, that was one thing that I don't think we've touched on yet, is just the amount of gear that flying in and making sort of like a little base camp at the landing spot there on the lake. That afforded us a little bit of extra weight on the way in, just on the gear side. We knew that we could bring, say, 2 sets of rain gear, possibly a warmer sleeping bag if we thought it was necessary. The titanium wood stoves, and I remember being in town, and we were walking through one of the shops on our weather delay day, and you saw a football, and you asked Pailey. You said, "Should we buy a pigskin?" And I thought you were joking. I really did. I thought, no, that there's no way that Ryan Lampers is going to bring a football to hunting camp, but you did, and you got your fun out of it. So
it's funny because before I left on the trip, we've got this red football that we chuck around the yard here at the house all the time, and I almost threw it in my bag, and I was like, "Oh, come on, that's silly on a trip like that." And then when we were up there, I just happened to see one. I was like, "Man, let's just do it."
Yeah,
good weather and bring it, and if there's any downtime, we can chuck it around up in the alpine.
Yeah,
it worked out.
Yeah, it's a
I'll always remember that.
Pretty scenic spot to be tossing the old football around. The great American pastime, football and deer hunting.
Yeah, exactly. What's she shooting, if you don't mind me asking?
She shoots whatever I shoot.
Okay.
So it's funny, like when I first, started her into hunting, I bought her a little 6.5 Creed, I wanted to make sure I didn't wreck her with too much pop and all that. And, Creeds shoot amazingly well. They're very accurate. And, she shot that thing like a champ. I got a little shorty, little subcompact, synthetic, and it was actually a Vanguard from Weatherby 6.5 Creed. And that thing shoots. It's a tack driver.
Yeah.
But I'm always going to have the gun that I'm shooting. And so she just grabs whatever I'm shooting and uses that one. So that way we don't have to pack two.
Nice.
And so, if I'm shooting, which I often shoot the 6.5 RPM from Weatherby, she just shoots that. And I put a good break on there, and it's really easy to shoot. And she shoots it extremely well.
Yeah.
Good. Very nice.
Yeah. That's awesome. So walk us through, I suppose, just from your side, just kind of a breakdown of the days and what happened. Obviously, folks can go see what already happened in episode 1, but then throughout the hunt, after the day of 3 deer, there was still, I think, 2 more days of hunting after that we actually were killing deer. And then after, I suppose I can skip a little bit here, and then I'll let you tell the story that I wasn't even there for. But the following day, after the day of 3 deer, the cameraman got got his 1 buck, and Chiam shot his nice blacktail, and that was a whole scenario as well. He was in a kind of a steep spot, and they spooked for. I don't remember if that was wind or if we thought they saw us or what ended up happening there, but those deer just moved and kind of turned that from an easy lay down and shoot type of situation to, okay, it's this buck. All right, now he's in the back, or now he's third from the back, and it was just kind of a constant communicating, trying to make sure he was going to shoot the right buck. And then was that the only deer that we shot that day, Ryan?
No. So we ended up taking Chiam's buck there, and if you remember, Dalton, there's a lot of bucks there on that hillside,
Yes.
and we saw
that's right.
We saw the giant one,
Yes.
the big one, right?
Yep.
Biggest one that we eyeballed on the trip.
Yep.
And he got up on that ridge, and man, he was modeling for us up there. We got to see him in all his glory, like silhouetted, skylined, and multiple bucks went up on that skyline and buggered over it. And so, Pailey and I, we were like, well, let's go take a look around this other side and see what we can see. Well, we no sooner left Chiam's buck that was piled up there next to the creek, and we look up on the right, and there's another really nice buck.
Mm-hmm.
And we're like, well, he's nice. He's a big, mature deer, but boy, after, witnessing the buck that got up on the ridge, we were like, gosh dang it. That's kind of what we had set our eyes on. That's the one we actually wanted Chiam to shoot.
Yeah.
And so we went around the peak, and we kind of looked, and they had disappeared. They went up and over.
Yeah.
They went all the way up and over.
Yep.
So we ended up coming back, putting eyes on that buck again, coming back to you guys where, you guys are breaking the deer down. Kind of rolled around, got out of sight, and Pailey, myself, and Chiam snuck up into I think we were within like 220 yards of that buck.
Yep.
And he stayed there, didn't go far at all. He was just feeding. And we got set up. Pailey gets prone, steep hillside. And again, she made a perfect shot on this one.
Yes.
And that tumbled off the hill, and bam, we've got 2 deer down.
Yeah. I'd totally forgotten that she shot her other one right at that same gorge, just kind of around the corner from Chiam's buck. I forgot about that. But now that was another good day. But that being said, you already alluded to the buck that I think you were calling the king on that trip. And
he looked like a king from the top there. He looked like a big crown on his head.
Yeah. And so the following, I think that night we got back to camp, and you had another tag left. And at that point, Pailey was tagged out. My wife and I weren't going to shoot anymore. And then Chiam had gotten his, and so that left you with one more opportunity. And we decided to, if we can have one more day to let you get after that the king, which you did. And then when you in-reached me after you'd gotten him, I remember your in-reach message said, "The king is dead." and all I could think of was that old Johnny Cash song, "The king is dead."
Yep.
So tell us about that day with you and Chiam just chasing that buck by just the 2 of you.
Yeah, so we boogied up there. We actually brought camp with us that day, in case we had to stay the night and come out the next morning. And had everything on our back, left you guys. I don't know what you guys were going to do, watch movies all day. I have no idea. But we kind of left you at the bottom there.
Just play football.
Chiam and I got up at the top, just play football.
Yeah.
And we went up basically to the point where we had ended the prior day with Pailey's deer. And we got in there and kind of got down, and we had some bears around. There was a bear that came onto us pretty fast. He was running right up the creek drainage. We assumed he was going to Chiam's carcass.
Yeah.
made sense that he was going right to Chiam's carcass. And we were right in the gut of that thing. So we kind of got up and off of it so we could look down on him. And he got in tight and he winded us, which was good. And then he buggered up, and then he ended up doing this big circle up on the hill that we were hoping to relocate King on. And that bear came in. We got a lot of great footage. We just watched him for probably an hour. And then we pushed past that. We were glassing, some deer here, some deer there. There was no shortage of bucks, a lot of little tiny forkies, but kind of the only interest we had was finding that one big one that we'd seen the night before. So we're really focused on the big mountain in front of us where we last saw him, but where we weren't focused as much is right behind us. So at some point I turned around and I looked, and we had glassed up some deer up there. There was several different small groups of young bucks.
Mm-hmm.
But I just happened to turn around and I see a different buck. And he was only like probably 200 yards from us. He wasn't far at all.
Oh, wow.
He had just been in this little cut, this little rock shale type cut. He got up and was just kind of walking away. We're like, holy smokes, he was here the whole time.
Mm.
And we had been back there a while. And so we made a plan to try to get up, try to cut him off and see if we could get up there. And so we made this race around and scooched up the mountain as best we could and got in as tight as we could and finally got into shootable range. And he would stop on occasion, pick up some grass and then start moving a little bit. And finally got a shot and dumped him. And so, yeah, it was pretty cool. Finally got that one big buck that was in that drainage. And you'll see in the video that this drainage we're hunting is like unbelievably beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, it's what dreams are made of, honestly. Beautiful creek going down through the bottom of it, just big laid out bowl. We've got a drop over here. We can see everything. And it was just loaded up in deer, a lot of forkies and whatnot. But yeah, there was one good one. And maybe there was another big buck in there, but I feel like, we did our job that day and we got the big one. We got the one that we knew of that was a good 3 on each side. So
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, it's an amazing thing when you can go after one and get the target.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
not
Absolutely.
just get what walks out in front of you. So
Yeah.
let's take a break real quick. Hammer Bullets produces what we at the Northern Hunter consider to be the most premium and best working monolithic bullets on the market today. These bullets are easy to load, extremely accurate, and best of all, they're always in stock and ready to ship. The guys at Hammer designed them so that after penetrating the hide of an animal, it sheds its petals, initiating a massive energy dump while retaining the rear shank for maximum penetration. These bullets are built with 100% focus on how they perform on game, and their proprietary designs produce great BCs with specialized pressure grooves for amazing inherent accuracy and speed. They have a minimum expansion velocity of 1,800 feet per second, which allows for long-range shots, but with no maximum velocity, making them perfect for every cartridge from your granddaddy's old 30-30 to the high-velocity round like the Weatherby 3378 without having to worry about your bullet failing. To view their expansive selection and find the perfect match for your hunting needs, go to hammerbullets.com and use discount code TheNorthernHunter to drop the hammer on your next adventure. So you're pretty well known, Ryan, for the mule deer hunting, high country stuff down there in the lower 48. And how would you say this experience compared to what you're used to back home? Things that were different behavior wise or tactics wise, or if everything was the same?
Yeah. Gosh, it kind of reminded me of like a Colorado mule deer hunt, just in that it feels like you're above tree line. It's decent, somewhat warm conditions. Late August, very first week, first few days of September is kind of that time frame hunting with a bow in Colorado for fuzzy horn bucks. And it had that feel to it. Now, obviously, there's a lot more to look at where we just were. There was a lot of deer. Now, Colorado, you see a lot of deer as well. They got that red coat. They're just shining out there. They're hard to miss. So it had that kind of feel to it. Now, the ease of this hunt, I would say this doesn't go down as a real hard hunt, for sure. Most of the mule deer hunts that we do, late season especially, those are hard hunts. Those are steeper, and there's a lot of elevation gained and lost every day. We're crushing thousands of feet up and down every day. And there's difficulty in the time of year that we're in these mountains, doing just that. I would say the one hunt is like I said, Colorado, because I feel like Colorado early season with a bow is easy. I'll say it. It's easy. I know bow hunters don't like hearing it, but it's easy. It's an easy hunt. They're easy to find. They're easy to kill. They're out in the open, and it's a pretty easy hunt. This was a pretty easy hunt, the one that we did. It had its challenges with the terrain and whatnot, but overall, it wasn't all that difficult. I think it was perfect for, the stage that Pailey was in, and, I think it had all that challenge, but you take the time frame out of that in that country. I know you guys do some, late season stuff and hunt blacktails, late when they're hard-horned. Probably a much more difficult hunt than that early time frame.
Yeah.
But we chase mule deer in the high country quite a bit, and it's hard. It's hard. Especially the time frame we're doing it in. We're hunting them in, maybe that 3rd to 4th week of October, and some places don't let us hunt past that. And then some places we're able to hunt during the rut, which makes it nice, but it's still not easy.
Yeah.
I remember on this hunt, you remarked several times, especially after the first day, when we were seeing deer and their seeming carefree attitude. And you remarked about their awareness and their spookiness compared to mule deer. Touch on that a little bit.
Yeah. So mule deer, in my opinion, are extremely wary. You don't get away with much. You quickly learn when it comes to mule deer, if you're, bow hunting, the right terrain makes all the difference. So when I think of like places like Nevada or Colorado, high country stuff, sometimes the terrain just lays out to where it's perfect. Now, oftentimes it's not all that easy, and it's very difficult to stalk in on a mule deer buck because any sound whatsoever, and sometimes they just put themselves in an impossible position, and you're busted. These deer were not that wary. It seemed like we could get away with a lot, and they didn't just bugger out of there. And, you always play it safe on the front end, and then you start to realize, like, man, we haven't been busted once, and we're getting away with a lot up here. we're in the wide open. We're getting away with a lot. So, after Dalton and Tabitha shot that deer, if you notice in the video, I had the long lens on the buck that they were originally going to go kill. And they got sidetracked and they killed those other great bucks. And while they shot those 2 bucks, that buck was not that far away. They just, threw 2 shots out there, and then there's, talk, and we came down the ridge, and man, that one buck that I ended up killing, he stayed in his bed. He never got up. He never got up until I literally got over there within about 60 yards of him. And then he stood up.
Yeah.
And he didn't stand up and boogie. He stood up and just kind of could tell there was something in the grass, like something in the grass over there. And he just stood there, statued and let me put one through him. So, yeah, I wasn't blown away by their spookiness.
Well, and for reference sake, I mean, don't get me wrong, in the editing of this film, you guys did a great job of kind of lowering the tone of the gunshots, but you have some quite formidable muzzle brakes on those rifles.
Yeah. On the rifle that Tabitha was shooting, there's a big side baffle brake on that 7 mag that she was shooting. That's my old trusty. I think that deer that she shot with that gun was animal 29 or 30 with that gun. And so she shot it a bunch. I've shot it a bunch. But I put that muzzle brake on there for being able to track my shots at longer distances when I'm hunting by myself. And it works great for that. but it sounds like a landslide happening when you touch it off in the mountains.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the 338 RPM that I was shooting with a little 18-inch barrel and a radial brake, it sounds like a Civil War cannon going off. It's
really
incredibly loud. Very effective, albeit, but very loud. But there's two things that I've heard about those deer as I've hunted them over the years now, and I've talked to some different people about that and why they're not that spooky, seemingly. And some people just chalk it up to, well, that's just how they are. Well, there has to be a reason why. And the two reasons that I've heard that I there's no facts to back this up, but number one is when they're in the mountains like that, there's slides happening on a somewhat regular basis. As the snow melts and things move around and rocks break loose. I know, I think the night that we had the big campfire down there at base camp, when all the events were wrapped up, we lit off a big bonfire and, sat up for a couple hours and talked and sat by the fire. And there was a couple of big slides that happened. You could just hear them, boom, 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 boulders rolling down the mountain across the lake. And so that's one thing that I've heard is they're used to hearing big noises like that. And as long as it doesn't sound like anything more than just a big boom, then they think, oh, it's just rock sliding down the hill. No big deal.
That's an interesting point.
Again, I don't know that it's true, but I have seen that happen with brown bears before. I
absolutely buy into it, Dalton. I 100%, because I can't tell you how many times we've shot deer, and there's other bucks in the area that it's just thunder. It's just they're in the sky. It's not that they run from, but voices, and then obviously two-legged, dudes walking down bridges. They pick that up. But,
right.
People often get onto us because after a shot, we're still whispering. We're still like quiet.
Yeah.
And they're like, guys, you just shot. What are you doing? You're not going to, every deer in the county is gone. And that is completely not the case.
Yeah.
Most times, sometimes they run, but sometimes they don't. And oftentimes they don't. So we're always prepared for another buck to be in the area.
Yeah.
When we're hunting mule deer.
Yeah.
And sometimes you get away with it, sometimes you don't. I think, what I was shocked about with these deer is, they could literally see you and just kind of stand there and watch you.
Yeah.
Like Pailey's deer. That deer literally watched us walk right down the creek, cross the creek, go look on the other side, slide back down, come across, and then we kind of got out of sight. And he's only 300 yards from us. Then we got out of sight and we got up for a closer shot, and he was still there. I think those little situations jump out as, man, these things are really not all that spooky.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a spot that I've guided a few brown bear hunts that's in a little back lagoon. There's mountain goats up on top of the hill. And this area has slides. I mean, it feels like every half hour there's a huge slide, and it's just thunderously loud. And the brown bears do the exact same thing. And normally bears, when a gunshot goes off, bears flee. They're just gone.
They're out of there.
It doesn't seem to matter as much with voices, I've noticed, even with brown bears, that they're not as turned off by voices. But when a gun goes off, like that's why people will fire into the air when they want to scare a bear off, or they'll touch off an air horn. That's why that seems to work, because bears just act differently with noise, at least the ones that I've had interactions with. But the other thing is I've heard about what kills these deer up here. Not a whole lot. And the brown bears. I'm sorry to cut you off there. There's brown bears, and then on some of the islands, there's not brown bears and there's black bears.
Right.
On the black bear islands, the black bears put a hurting on those deer. There's some of the islands around the southeast archipelago down there in Alaska, and I'm sure in parts of Canada too, where the black bears are the primary killer of these deer. But where we were, there were brown bears, as folks have seen in the footage by now. And those brown bears just don't seem to care too much about the deer. I've never once in almost 10 years of hunting them ever seen a brown bear chasing a deer. Ever.
Right.
Now, I've seen them plenty of times come up and rip a gut pile from where I had it stashed.
Oh, yeah.
After I packed the meat out, I've seen brown bears come in within an hour of me making a gut pile out there.
But they're more opportunistic than
But that's they're smelling it, and they're just coming in for an opportunistic grab the carcass and take off with it, hanging out of their mouth like a dog with a bone. But those deer aren't used to being really chased by anything else. So we don't look like bears necessarily. And I think in reference to your first buck, Ryan, that's in that first episode, you were crawling up. There's really nothing that kills those deer that's low to the ground and stays out of sight like that. They don't have wolves. They don't have, I
Cougars.
suppose, mountain lions, stuff like that. And so that they're often, they seem to have a gap of when they see you, and it's just curiosity. Like, what is that?
Yeah.
That they don't have a whole lot of predators.
Yeah, and that's got to have a lot to do with it, because we get into some high basins in the lower 48 with deer that are absolutely clueless. They literally come up and they're curious about what we are.
Yeah.
They just don't see a lot of humans. But in areas where there's cats, where there's a history of cats, some of the spookiest deer you'll ever hunt.
Oh yeah.
There's a cat in the area and the deer know it, and they've been chased. Boy, you can't get away with anything. I mean, absolutely.
Interesting.
And some of the more open country where there's quite a few cats, the breaky type stuff, like mid-state, man, my gosh, those deer, they see just a couple inches of the top of your head, peer over a rise, they're gone. And oftentimes those are deer that are getting hunted by cats all day, every day.
Yeah.
Similar to when I look at places like Mexico with Coues deer, cats are their biggest enemy down there.
Yeah.
I mean, they are every single day getting hunted by cats, and that's why they're so like schizo, spazzy, just on edge all the time. I mean, they're afraid of their own shadow. They're just always getting hunted.
Yeah.
And so, definitely not the case with the deer that you and I were chasing up there, Dalton. So I think that has a lot to do with it. Bears are absolutely destructive, especially on fawns. But that time of year, I don't think they're too worried about it. You see where they were putting themselves out in the wide open.
Yeah.
They'll be able to see bear and recognize that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even out in the wide open with cats, cats find a way. Cats are killers.
Yeah.
Dalton, would you say there are a lot spookier deer in the winter?
Yeah.
Yeah, on the beach.
Yeah. They are definitely a lot more on edge later in the season. Like now, granted, if you're hunting them peak rut, like the couple of weeks leading up to Thanksgiving, they'll walk right up to you.
They're rutting just like any other deer.
They just go crazy, and you have a generous opportunity as long as you're being smart and you're not talking and making a bunch of noise. If you're still hunting, just old fashioned, just creep through the woods real slow, maybe cover a mile in a day, just going through the timber where those bucks are cruising through. If you just bump into one, he's just going to stand there and stare at you for a minute while you take a shot. But that's an exception. When it gets pre-rut or post-rut, man, you see those deer, and as soon as they see you and recognize what you are, it's back up in the trees.
Especially the bucks.
Yeah, especially the big bucks.
To see bucks the size you guys were shooting,
and
get a chance at a shot, it seems like it's a lot less.
Yeah.
And we saw them.
Yep.
But actually getting one on the ground was a lot harder than to do.
They're much harder to get later in the year like that, because those deer are cagey. And a lot of those deer, they've been hunted before too. That they know what people are. Now, I don't know that some of the deer that we were seeing had seen folks in a while. I was talking to the pilot about that area. It doesn't get a lot of pressure, and I'd like to keep it that way. But those
sure did.
Yeah, those deer, that they're not getting hunted when they go down low. It's just not an area that gets any other traffic, and I think that makes it a little bit better for us anyway, for hunting, because we can just look over all of them. I think had we been in an area that gets more pressure, could have been a little different story.
Sure.
Deer that are a little more educated.
I'm sure that's a huge component there.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. But
yeah, it felt like it could have been a really fun hunt if we all had bows in our hands.
Yeah,
that would have been
that
would have been a good challenge for us. I think that would have been a fun hunt.
2025
to bows. Yeah. I talk about that hunt like it was such a good hunt. I don't know if I want to go back because it went so well.
It'd just be pouring down rain the whole time next time.
I'm going to let down if we go do it again because the weather's going to be not so good. And
Yeah.
It's just how it goes.
I think the next time I do that hunt, I'm going to go to a similar type of situation, but I'd love to do a through hike. That seems to be very attractive. Get landed at one spot, take camp with you, go light, normal, like sheep camp style, go super light, bring what you need, not what you want, and just go from point A to point B, and you have to make it to point B. And that makes you get a little more choosy with what you're going to shoot too,
right?
Because you don't want to shoot your choice buck a mile into a 13-mile through trip, and have to carry camp with it. It'll make you pack a light camp too, because you don't want to make 2 trips. But I think that would add a little bit of a little more of an adventure style through hike element to it for next time, possibly.
You're totally right.
Yeah.
No, I think I'm joking. I would definitely love to do a trip like that again. Especially with Pailey. I mean, she remembers that trip so well. She just had an absolute blast. So we'll definitely do it again sometime.
Yeah.
Well, and kind of along the lines of doing a through trip, I mean, talk about like the terrain features you guys had to contend with out there. I mean, I know in the film you guys talked a lot about the steep climbs and the wet grass and slipping and sliding. Some
of us were slipping and sliding. Some of us.
Well, Ryan, why ever weren't you slipping and sliding? Please do tell.
That's a question, Dalton. See, I had these things that somebody invented them quite a while ago. They're called micro spikes. They go on your boots, keep you from falling, they keep you upright. They're great. So Pailey and I both had sets of micro spikes, and we were very glad we brought them.
Yeah.
We just didn't know what the terrain was going to be, but I've often found when it comes to micro spikes, and we do gear reviews all the time and bag dumps and all this, I always throw them in there because I rarely regret having them, whether it's a late season hunt with snow or a late season hunt with just rain on, dead yellow grass going down the steep chutes. It's awfully nice keeping upright. You don't have to worry about blowing a knee out with a hard slip or anything like that. Coming down heavy, some of the steep mountains that we're hunting, coming down with a one trip and a mule deer on your back. If you don't have spikes on, you're going to do some slipping and sliding and potential to blow something out. I feel like even the fall bear hunts. When I started using micro spikes, I was doing fall bear hunts in Washington. That's kind of why I got them, and for late season mule deer hunts. But September, even August, when it gets real wet, in those Washington high country hunts, it was just huckleberry fields, and that's all we'd hunt is those alpine huckleberry fields. And you get a hard storm come through and you don't have spikes on, you cannot stay up. You're just always on your butt. You just can't do it. And so I use them on spring bear trips. I use them in snowy conditions. I was very thankful I had them on that trip because just the dew on the grass when it started to lose light, or in the mornings, it just stuck, and it was a slick basin. That whole area was just real slick. And coming down every night, it seemed like we had a deer on our back coming down at night, and that's when it was the most slippery. So it was nice staying upright with those micro spikes.
I brought one set of micro spikes that you were none too impressed with the brand of, but I'd had them for years, and honestly probably didn't have more than a few miles on them. But I bought them for doing an early spring grizzly hunt up in the mountains where it was going to be some ice and ice on the shale slopes, and I used them a little bit on that trip, but not a whole lot. And I'd used them sheep hunting a little bit before, but again, that time of year, there's not a whole lot of ice around, and usually there's a way to get around any, super dangerous type of chutes or anything like that. I would just try to avoid it because I didn't want to fall. And that's another thing too, is you have to go up or go down and look at your fall line. You don't want to pick a spot that looks great, but 2 feet to either side is a straight to your death either. But so I brought that old set. And my wife Tabitha ended up wearing my micro spikes, which I was glad I had them for her. And but Chiam and I were the 2 out of the 5 that did not have micro spikes, and we paid dearly for it. I fell one time. I had my spotter in my little side pocket on my initial ascent pack on the little spotter sleeve there on the side, which works awesome. But that lens is right at the bottom of your pack. And I didn't have anything cushioning the end of it. And I took a slip and hit my butt and went down. I probably slid down the grass like 15 feet or something like that. I mean, probably at the most 15 feet. It feels a lot more in the moment.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I wasn't worried about where I was going to fall to. It was all just the same slope in the grass. I just knew I was going to end up at the bottom some way. But the first thing I thought was I hit so hard on my rear end and I felt my pack just slam hit the ground. My first thought was my spotting scope. And so we got back to camp and I pulled it out and I'm shaking it and listening for any loose lenses inside, and it's fine. And it's no damage done. But yeah, from now on, I will not do a hunt anywhere close to that again without having micro spikes. And honestly, I'll probably just start packing them everywhere because, after seeing them in use, I just haven't had a whole lot of use for them up until then. But I can see a little bit more of the benefit to it. And like you said, even spots where you might not think that it's going to be too slick, some of that Arctic tundra coming down the Caribou Hills or coming down from a sheep hunt, or even grizzly bear hunting. You can end up in some real nasty terrain chasing a bear.
Oh yeah,
and coming down heavy, especially. The downhill is what gets you. Oftentimes you're going uphill, you're just going to land on your knees. But going downhill, your feet go out from under you, and I'm here to tell you, it hurts.
Yeah,
every single time it hurts.
Yeah.
But
and places that we use them, like sometimes, in Alaska, you guys know this, it's so dang thick. Sometimes the creek bed, if it's a nice rocky creek bed, is your best approach to get down to the bottom.
Yeah.
But it's slippery.
Oh, yeah.
The water makes it slick. So I throw the spikes on it and shoot down with ease.
Yeah.
Even this past year moose hunting, we ended up just pre-season doing some scouting, and there was a creek, pretty good sized creek, and we wanted to, just walk down this creek a couple miles, 2 or 3 miles, but the rocks were super slick. And again, I had micro spikes, and the other guys did not have micro spikes, and I set my feet real easy just walking that creek bed all the way down, and then kind of like an old avalanche chute that's real wet and slick, I was able to scurry up that with ease with the spikes on. But they always seem to come in handy when you have them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're saying I'm not the only one?
Oh no, you're not the I'm pretty sure Brady and Brian made me for not having told them about micro spikes on that hunt.
Yeah.
But
That's funny.
a lot.
What brand microspikes do you recommend, Ryan? Seeing as Dalton said you didn't like his.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them out there, but the only ones that I've found to last and that are worth the darn is those Kahtulas.
I saw those.
Kahtoola. Kahtoola.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just saw those in Barney's last week.
Nice.
Yeah.
We see them in all the BREIs and stuff like that. But
I'll say they look.
yeah, those are the set that really last well.
They look pretty hardy. I mean, from what I can see. So
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, I've ran those things in New Zealand in those snowfields over there, in places where I should have had full crampons, but again, the spikes saved the day. So.
Yeah. That was a little bit more life and death terrain. If folks haven't seen that old film, that's one of the classic gritty films from back in the day. That's still one of my favorite ones to go back and watch every once in a while. I need to make that happen one day. Go do that hunt. While they still have tar and they don't kill them all with helicopters.
No kidding. That's a hunt that no regret doing for sure. It's very affordable too.
Yeah. That's on the list for sure. So talk a little bit about some of the other benefits of the things that you've chosen to bring. I know I brought most of these things too, but just in your years of using these things, I have on my list here for this hunt in particular, 2 sets of rain gear, using the wood stove and the teepee tent, having the hot tent set up. We've talked about that briefly before for drying out gear, and then park on the boot dryers too. I know a lot of folks are still in the dark about that. They don't know that there is a solution out there for drying out boots in the field. So talk about that if you would.
Yeah, if you're one that whether there's threat of going in and getting water over your boots, that's always a threat. But some guys just have sweaty feet, and so it's not necessarily the the rain or the water. Man, I love throwing Brian Call under the bus, but he's got that thing, that disease. What is it? Hyperhidrosis or whatever. His feet sweat, and they sweat a ton, so he's changing socks all the time. And at the end of the day, he's got to run boot dryers with the stove, just to dry out the boots and all of his socks that he changes in and out of all day long. But man, the boot dryers they're legit. They're really good. I mean, they're easy to use. They don't drain your battery pack all that much. I mean, you can, if you got a Dark Energy or whatever battery pack you use, you can literally run that boot dryer almost all night long, and you might lose a bar. They just don't sip that much energy. It's crazy. And so, yeah, Graxaw is the one that we use. Austin over there at Graxaw, he's got an engineering mind, and he's always creating these cool little things gear wise. And he built those boot dryers, and he's had several different versions and iterations. And he's at a point now, man, these things are really nice. The fans are protected inside there. No issues with the wiring thing. But yeah, so we just pack those, and at the end of the day, when you get the stove going, you basically try to elevate your boots a little bit to where there's maybe some heat up in the top of the teepee, a little more heat up there. And you plug the boot dryers in, and you set them on the top of the boot. And, sometimes I notice Brian runs them till morning, oftentimes, because his feet are so wet. But I don't think it's going to take that long for most people's boots to dry out. But no, they're in wet, humid type conditions where you're crossing creeks a lot or getting a lot of rain. Yeah, they're an easy one as far as a 1 pound set of boot dryers. It's not that big of a weight hit. They're just always having the kit.
Yeah,
or at least it can.
Right.
Yeah, those are pretty handy to have. I know just meeting a few other people in guide camps now in the last couple of years since I still have the original set of Graxaw boot dryers since you guys first started using them. I'm still running the originals. I actually went out and found a what seemed to be once in a blue moon product that I couldn't find locally, but I was able to order a USB to USB extension cord so that I could actually set the battery on the floor in the tent and then run it all the way up over the cross members of the trekking poles in the rafters of that tent to reach the boot dryers that were in the boots, because the original ones came with a little short cord, and I could never seem to get them to work very well with that thing.
So Austin now has an extension cord in. When you buy a kit, he's got an extra wound up cord in there that makes it really long. So it's
nice.
Really nice.
Yeah, that's very handy. I searched high and low into USB extension cord.
Yeah.
Just got to know, did you go to Office Max?
No.
Okay, we have 2 of them in here that I bought there.
Really?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Just so you know, that's where they're at, folks. If you're local,
Walmart's got them too.
Do they?
I checked Walmart. I checked Fred Meyer's Electronics. I couldn't find them anywhere.
Walmart can be out of stock of those things.
Yeah. That's where I got the HDMI.
Anyway.
Too. But yeah, that's besides the point.
So the last thing I have on my list here, just to wrap up, is preparing for the worst. And although we didn't get any rain during the hunt, Tabitha and Chiam caught the first ride out of there, back to town after everybody had tagged what they wanted to tag. And you and Pailey and I got stuck. So the preparation for folks, we talk a lot about the weather, and although on film it's going to look like we were just basking in the sun and getting the tan and playing football and fishing for bucks, that wasn't how it ended. And right at the end, we saw the flare up of what is normally Southeast Alaska temperamental weather. And as the pilot was flying in, we could see off in the distance. You could see the lightning going off in the clouds, and you could hear it coming, and the wind started changing. And we knew whoever's getting out on that first flight is probably the only ones getting out today. And so you and Pailey and I got stuck an extra day there with what was left of camp at that point. Obviously, we kept, and this is something else too, when you're getting left behind, don't send any of your camp stuff or any of your food back to town, right? Because
anything important.
Yeah, had we done that, we would have been hungry, for the day. Now, luckily, we only got stuck for one day, but even then, the next day, he was thinking he was going back and forth with me on the inReach. I don't know if I'm going to make it today, man. It's still bad here on his end, and so he was able to sneak in and grab us. But talk a little bit about that and your experiences in Alaska and possibly getting left behind, and what folks need to consider.
Yeah, it's probably one of the most important things we talk about when talking about Alaska is build your trip as if you're going to get half the days to hunt, and the other half camp. So we always try to do, especially for moose and things like that. We're trying to do 2 weeks,
right?
Minimum. Anything less, and we just expect that there's probably going to be 5, 6, 7 days, maybe half the trip stuck under a tent with bad weather, fogged in, rained in. Pilot can't get to you for whatever reason. You always got to prepare for that. So you always got to have a little backup food that you may have to utilize when the pilot can't get back in. That's just normal. Don't expect to get out on that flight that you booked for the 18th, and your bush pilot is picking you up on the 17th. That might have been a bad move.
So you're saying get the flight insurance with Alaska Airlines.
Be prepared to change the flight. I mean, I just expect it now. Like I'm going to be changing my flight for some reason.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, Dalton made a good point. Make sure, if one group goes out and the other group stays in, they've got everything needed to stay, be there for a good amount of time. Handgun, inReach, food, cooker, sleeping bag, shelter, all the important things.
Mm-hmm.
Movies, very important. Right?
Yeah, you have to keep yourself entertained out there.
You didn't want to mention like what a cheat deal we had going on up there with the movies, or is that just too foo-foo? Do you remember that
cheat deal? As in,
like movies, literal big movies. Watching.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, it was that ridiculous documentary that Chiam had on his phone.
So Chiam brought a projector, right? It's this little tiny Kodak. It's the size of a cell phone. It's a movie projector. So you plug it into your phone, and any movies you've got downloaded, you can project it up onto the side of the Peaks teepee and literally watch it if you're watching a big screen television.
Nice.
I forgot about that.
So we literally, a couple of those nights, after we packed deer off the mountain, we sat down and set the Helinox chairs up and punched a movie right up onto the Peaks teepee and watched it.
Yeah.
Several.
Yeah.
After taking our cold plunges and dunking ourselves to try to cool off a little bit.
Yeah. I forgot about that too. Yeah. I think Chiam and I sat out the cold plunge at night. We were plenty cooled off by that point. But you and
girls it was hot.
Yeah.
It was,
I remember.
It's nice.
Yeah, Tabitha and Pailey were all about just go get in the water, and that's that's great. But like I said, I'm a dry land person. I do plenty on the water, but I do everything I can in Alaska to stay out of the water. that's just not my MO. I try to stay dry.
Man.
Yeah, that little projector was actually pretty cool. I was just bummed out that the thing that Chiam wanted to watch, or you, I don't remember who picked it, but it was an NFL quarterbacks documentary. I mean, come on.
It was Chiam. Chiam had a couple of odd shows for us.
Yeah,
I think it was Patrick Mahomes.
Yes.
A documentary or something.
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah.
Would have been way better off to just sit there and watch like Tombstone or John Wayne or something like that.
So if you really want to spoil yourself, go look for one of those little Kodak like 350 projectors or whatever.
Yeah.
If you're camping in a teepee or a wall tent, you can really spoil yourself with movies and project it right up onto the wall.
That might be a game changer come moose season, man.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Got the fire roaring, watching a movie.
Game changer, huh?
Oh, I hate that term. I hate the term game changer. You know that. Oh boy.
It is what it is.
Oh, I know. I just like to give you a hard time about it. Well, I think unless you had anything else to add there, I think that was pretty much in summary what went on there. And did you have anything else that you wanted to add in there, Ryan?
Yeah, any fun little stories?
We pretty well covered it, I believe. Yeah, I guess, I'd like to thank you, Dalton, for kind of turning me on to the opportunity. And it was a fun trip. Again, I think it's one of those trips where my daughter laughed so much that she always will remember that trip as being just one of the best. Loved it from start to finish. So
Perfect.
yeah, we will do it again sometime. But
Yeah,
you guys showed us a good one.
Well, it was a privilege to have you guys up, and I know that my wife Tabitha had a great time on the hunt. She still talks about it, and her and Pailey still talk about things that happened on the trip, and they laugh about it. And so I'm glad that the two of them, I think Tabitha enjoyed finally having another lady to hunt with, and seemed like her and Pailey got along, and so I think that was good for them to have some camaraderie outside of just a bunch of sweaty, stinky guys on the side of the mountain. So.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a bunch of one-liners from movies from you and Chiam pretty much.
Yeah, well, that's the guide life. I'm telling you, probably 20% or more of entertaining a client is just knowing a bunch of one-liners. So I got to practice up with you guys.
I'll ask you this. I think on the last episode you were on with us, which good night, that was probably 60 episodes ago now.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Good man. Anyway, you were going on about how you had kind of reignited the flame for Alaska. You kind of caught that bug, and started planning more trips up here. You think your daughter's getting the bug too? Think she'll be wanting to come back to Alaska?
I really tried to do it, this fall for moose, but man, it's such a tough time to bring her up because school starts first week, last part of August, and so she would have to miss so much school. So I'm afraid, the hunt that I really want to take her on, which is moose, we won't be able to do that until she's out of school. So it's tough.
Yeah,
I would happily put her out and homeschool her for the month of September. But
I was gonna say, bring a Starlink and you're good to go.
Yeah, you could definitely bring, Elon could definitely help us out with that. We could be doing homework while we're in Walton. But I tried my best to make that happen. But I got denied from my wife on that one because there's been a lot of school missed. But someday it's going to happen, and we will definitely get her up there. And I would love for her to do a caribou hunt. I've talked to Dalton a bit about this. I'd love to do a caribou hunt with her. But also, I'd really like to see her grab a moose, while I'm still young enough to do it.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you guys coming up, and the film turned out great. You guys did good work on that, and obviously, Chiam isn't here with us on the show, but Chiam, the cameraman, he was an absolute riot. He's a trooper, and he did a really good job with the film. A bunch of folks that have watched it have reached out to me and said what a good job that the filming was done with, and the production side of it. I know that's a lot of work on his end and on your end too. Trying to make sure that the storyline flows and everything goes together. And just being able to see it now on this side of it. You guys did a good job portraying what happened there. So, yeah. So I think the two takeaways I'm going to have from it is next time I'll have microspikes, and next time you'll have a thermometer.
Nailed it. Absolutely.
Yeah. Just got to get the one out of the little claw machine. That's what.
Yeah. You got to get it out of the little arcade machine.
It'll be a 21st century thermometer.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right, Ryan. Well, thank you so much for coming back on the show. It's always a pleasure having you on, and for sharing kind of insights and behind the scenes stuff. So, thank you very much,
guys,
for cutting time out of your evening. And for anybody listening, if you are once again going to be in the Fairbanks area, we've got our bear bait workshop going on the 20th of April at noon at the J.P. Jones Community Center. We've got some some advertisement out, some, flyers. That's what they're called, flyers out. But, this is probably the best place to hear about it. So make sure you go and RSVP your seat so you've got food. Feel free to show up without RSVPing, but
bring McDonald's.
bring some McDonald's. Be classy. At least Wendy's. Come on.
Yeah. I think there's a Holiday gas station right down the street.
There is.
You can get a Bahama Mama hot dog.
Yep. Some taquitos. There you go. Yeah. And so and once again, thank you. I just want to say for being one of our original sponsors and believing in what we're doing here with the StHeathy Hunter and StHeathy Nutrition, and providing us. For anybody that's not aware, if you go and shop from Ryan's store here, if you use the code The Northern Hunter, then you'll get yourself a discount and get yourself some great gear. You guys got gear and supplements and anything you could really need to be out in the backcountry. So thank you very much for your support. Well, hope you guys enjoyed this bonus episode, and until next time, get out there, get after it, and good luck. We'll see you there.
All right, folks. We all know that one of the most common mishaps in hunting is damage to your rifle scope. Last year, I found the solution to that problem with the StHeathy Hunter rifle cover. It wraps around your scope and action securely to protect it from getting knocked off of zero or even severely damaged. StHeathy Hunter also has a glassing pad and a wide variety of supplements for the outdoorsman, such as protein powder, CBD products, turmeric, and gut health supplements. They also make a lightweight trauma kit weighing in at just 14 ounces that includes everything you need and nothing you don't for all of your backcountry medical emergencies. To shop all of their equipment and supplements, go to StHeathyHunter.com and enter the discount code at checkout, The Northern Hunter, to save on your order today. All StHeathy Hunter equipment is proudly made in the USA.